Welcome. My name is Natasha Sherman, and I am your host. So, is there a God? And if so, where is God? So, as one of my sons, when he was about 3.5 years old, asked me, who made us and put us all together? For some parents, the answer to that is very easy. It's kind of they have a firm beliefs, and they just answer from their firm beliefs. For many of us, it's kind of an ongoing journey or an ongoing inquiry. So my guests today are two very astute, amazing, insightful women who have written books geared toward different age groups, but talking about God and the universe. So first I'd like you to meet Christine Roess. She is a grandmother of two grandchildren, and just recently published the book, Where's God? Geared towards quite youngish children, yes?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
so 4 to 8 or 9, I would say.
Okay, and it's great to know that. So welcome.
Thank you, I'm so glad to be here.
And then Jennifer Morgan, now we've talked before. Jennifer, as it says on your flyleaf cover, your storytelling journey started with telling your son bedtime stories, and he kept wanting more and more, and as you describe it, even to know the texture of the edges of the universe. So how provocative is that?
Yes.
So out of that, you wrote a series, 3 books, the Trilogy of the Universe.
Yes.
Yes, so what age group is that geared toward?
Well, it's geared toward the elementary age, which would be basically 6 to 12, but more with an emphasis on, let's say, 6 to 9. But they're also used, interestingly, at the middle school level and the high school level and even in colleges.
Yeah, so welcome and thank you for coming back. I'm so happy. And to have the two of you here kind of, negotiating between younger children and older children, adults, and that inquiry. So Christine, I'm going to start with you. So clearly, you were inspired to write this by your grandchildren.
Right.
But there had to be a kind of a mission to it or a particular point of view that you wanted to make. And if you could articulate that and how you kind of unearthed that.
Well, yes, absolutely. There was something that I wanted to communicate. I watched my grandchildren, who are the best grandchildren,
of course,
and the smartest and all that. But I watched them, be around, prayer and praying prayer before meals, which they were required to do, and they were like, what do I have to say to get to the food the fastest kind of thing. And so I wanted to, and I've grown up in with a very spiritual kind of background. Mm-hmm. I'm hippie in corporate clothing. I often describe myself. And my view is that God is everything, that's all there is God. And that we all are God. And I was eager for them to feel the reality and to feel and to have access to God being close to them and, available to them, and not something that you had to, some, guy in the sky that you had to, appease before, mom and dad would let you eat. So I was really looking for a book. Mm-hmm. And I had Googled it and gone on Amazon, and I was looking for a book that had that kind of point of view, and I couldn't find it. I found, stories of Jesus, which I'm not at all against. It's just not what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the night, one night, when I truly didn't have a thought of writing a children's book, had not crossed my mind, mm-hmm. but I woke up and in the middle of the night, and the whole story about, God creating the universe and deciding to play hide and seek, and this sort of, conception of this loving, very playful, fun God was just there. And I just kind of really, the whole bare bones of the story just poured out in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
It really was quite amazing. And I read it back, and usually I'm so critical of my work, but I read it back and I thought, I don't see anything wrong with this. I like this. And then, of course, the acid test, I shared it, just this bare bones story with my grandchildren, and they loved it.
Wow.
And they were immediately, like I was saying, so where do you think God is? Where do you think? And they ran right to their, paper and magic markers, and they'd just been to the movie theater, and so they were, drawing pictures of the movie theater and saying, God's here and God's there, and they were right into it. And so their approval has really, the whole way along, has been the fuel that's motivated me.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And it's a difficult subject for anyone who is in an ongoing inquiry as a parent, I know, as it was for me. And but to talk to children about it, it's so much easier for them to get it. And I remember, and I think I shared this with you, this British educator told this story about a little girl in class feverishly drawing a picture, and the teacher came up to her and said, "What are you drawing?" And she said, "A picture of God." And the teacher said, "Well, nobody knows what God looks like." And she said, "Well, they will in a minute."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so it's
I
just...
love that. I put it
yeah.
on my Facebook page. I love it.
Exactly. So that's where you can really connect on getting away from the complex, like making it complex. So it's just visceral.
Absolutely. It is really true that they do have a natural understanding.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah, which we adults would that we could get there, So Jennifer, you wrote this universe story. Book 1 is The Big Bang. Mm-hmm. Book 2 is Born from Lava to Life. Mm-hmm. And Book 3 is Mammals Who Morph. So this was kind of an ongoing journey, and those books didn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. So again, what was your mission and where have you gone with it?
Well, just to say how I got started on this journey, I did a program at a place called Genesis Farm up in northern New Jersey in Blairstown, which was founded by a Dominican sister. And she had been very inspired by the work of Thomas Berry. Thomas Berry published in 1978 an essay called The New Story. And in it, he talks about how we are between stories in the sense that the old cosmologies or the old stories are no longer working, and we need a new, compelling cosmology, cultural cosmology, in the sense that it would be one that, is logically rigorous and one that is affectively engaging, or one that really grabs our hearts. Mm-hmm. And thirdly, one that gives us a sense of personal meaning and cultural meaning. And fourthly, one that guides us in our behavior. And Thomas Berry was a Catholic priest. And so when he wrote his whole story, this essay, and in many books that he published, one being The Dream of the Earth, The Great Work, Evening Thoughts, numerous other books, it is all about this: how do we understand who we are inside an evolving universe? And for some of us, how do we see that as a spiritual journey? That we're learning this science story, but we can also see it as a spiritual journey in that sense. So when I wrote my books, in the way that Thomas Berry also did, actually not use the word God. I actually don't use the word God in here. And people are allowed, when they read the books, to bring their own belief system in as they see fit. But what's interesting is the question that is the title of your book is the question I am asked at almost every presentation and teacher training and school program that I give. Where is God in the story? And so, of course, it leads right into a conversation about that subject. And it was asked so often that it prompted me to add a letter at the end of my third book in answer to that question, where is God in the story? And I like, Mary Oliver's quote that mystery is our other name for God.
Mm.
And that is when you really delve into the whole story of an evolving universe that is emergent, that is dynamic, that is foundationally about transformation, from the very beginning all the way up till now, and we'll be continuing to do that. We don't know where we're headed completely.
Yeah.
This really is an adventure. And so when you look at it that way, there's this sense of mystery at the foundation of it all. And so when we think of it that way, in answer to the question, where is God in the story? If we have that idea of God as being ultimate mystery, then where is God not in the story?
Yes, which is, you're both saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's really
Absolutely.
great. I want to use this time really well, but I think it would be really wonderful if each of you could read something, and you can do it from memory, from your books. Now, there's my favorite page in the book, which I've asked you to read, and would you do that? You could set up the context, but then read that wonderful page.
Yeah, I'd be really glad to, because it's actually my 4-year-old grandson's favorite part too. I asked him, I'll read this to you and then I'll tell you what he said. So this is just to set it up a little bit. So the story is all about how God is hiding inside us, is playing hide and seek just for the fun of it. It's created all of this because God is so naturally creative, like children are, and they can relate to it because they're naturally creative too. And so God is hiding inside of all of us, just playing, and He loves it. God knows that when you discover that playful and loving feeling, that in fact is God, and God loves it as people discover their playful and loving nature. But then God says, but God noticed that sometimes children and grown-ups too didn't seem to feel the love in their own hearts, and would even be mean to each other when they weren't feeling the love. And God said, this isn't as much fun when people are grumpy. Maybe I should make them be nice to each other. I could do it. I am God after all. Then God said, but wait a minute. I don't want people to just do what I tell them to do and not have any choices and not surprise me. I want them to be free to create like me so they can be my friends, not my dolls. And I was really surprised when my 4-year-old, when I asked him what his favorite part was, I thought I knew it was a different part. And he said, my friends, not my dolls. And he just had the cutest little expression on his face. He was so delighted by that. And that's so, but
Yes.
that so spoke to him,
Yeah.
and it's a sort of fundamental issue of free will, that
Yes.
is so naturally understood by a
Yes.
4-year-old.
And it kind of explains the question of, that there are grumpy people. You could talk about God being playful, loving, whatever, but there are times where it's not so playful and loving, and that kind of just handles it. Yeah, they're not my dolls. They're
That's
my
right.
friends, so I have to let them choose. Yeah, thank you. Jennifer, would you like to do an excerpt from one of your books?
Okay. I think I'll just do something from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to set it up, it's the universe who is the speaker in the books. And when I do these storytellings in schools and so on, I have this noisemaker, this thunder tube, and that's to signify when the universe is coming in to start telling the story of how it was born and transformed and all that up to today. So I don't have my thunder tube today, but so I'll just do a little bit from the beginning. My dear Earthlings, you may not know me. I am the universe. And it's time for us to get to know each other. After all, I'm 13.8 billion years old now. And how old do you think you are? Or you? 5, 10, 20, 50, 100? No. You are 13.8 billion years old too. You and you are part of me. You are part of the universe. You have always been part of me from the very beginning. That's why I'm going to tell you a story about me, which is a story about you too.
Thank you.
Oh,
I look really
beautiful.
good for 13.8
Wow,
billion.
you do. That is magnificent.
It is.
Really, Jennifer.
And as Matthew Fox says, so if you need to take a nap once in a while, go ahead.
Give yourself a break.
Give yourself a break.
Exactly. Just quickly, did your son love these books?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
my son was, part of the creation.
The genesis
these,
of that, yeah.
And not only the genesis, but the actual creation throughout. I mean, every line he read gave me suggestions such as, Mom, I really love the word colossal. Can you just get that word in there? I said, oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, I would have him read the books while I was cooking dinner and get these little comments in the margin from him, like, oh, this part's really boring. Can't you make it more exciting or whatever?
Yeah. I just was scanning through, and the thing that makes it so accessible is that it's engaging. I mean, I watched you and I felt like a kid, but, here I am, an adult, loving hearing it in this form. And one of the things you say, one of the things that I kind of noticed, you said, even now, invisible bacteria are the living nuts and bolts of all life. Millions in every breath you take. Billions in every handful of soil. Billions more live and work inside you. Oh yes, some can make you sick, but lots more give you life. In fact, you human earthlings might well say, bacteria are us. And again,
I
it's
know.
like,
I learned so much reading your book, and I wouldn't have the tolerance myself personally. I hate to admit it, but to actually do the kind of reading and something that's supposed to be for my age. But I found this just packed.
yes.
With information, with giving me, not just information, but giving me the real sense of and a view of all of it. It's really fabulous.
Yeah, and here's, I'm just going to read one more. You may not know where you're headed, but you're part of something much bigger than humans. And that's why you too have exactly the powers you need, the powers of imagination, love, and decision making. Yes, my dear humans, I'm relying on you to be heroes now. Working together with other Earthlings, you can turn this crisis into something magnificent, a new Earth, such as you've never seen before. So
which gets back to what you were writing about, which is the free will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is really the crux here. How are we part of this story? Not like machines,
Right.
Yes.
but having an interiority, making decisions, relating to others.
Yes. And it's so easy to, I believe this, I believe that. In both of these books, what's really prevalent for me is this sense of we're all in this together. And, on a deeper level, we are each other, part of the same, God is it, whatever you call it, God, universe, spirit, energy. But it's the idea that we are not helpless bystanders in this process. And I think one of the things that, geared toward the younger children that kind of ties in with when you say, Christine, in your book, and always God looks through a you and through a me. And when you or I are sad or hurt, God is encouraging, always on our side, even whispering to us. If we listen very, very carefully, you can hear, you're doing great. You're learning and growing perfect, just exactly as you are. I mean, you know, how many of us were told that as children?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, you know, both of you are engaged in business, as you say, hippie in corporate clothes, and you teach teachers, you train teachers. So let's talk a little bit about how your life gets reflected through this book, but also through how you do the rest of your life.
Well, you know, it's for me, I've spent, you know, the last 30 years really working in business and our work is really a breakthrough in giving people and people in business access to who they're being. So the being of being a leader, the being of being a high performance team. We don't usually look from the standpoint of who people are being. You could say it's a way of talking about spirit, and in a way that the corporation can tolerate. And it's actually, as you were saying, it's so important for us to discover that we are all together. We're in this together. We're working together. And I went into business because I wanted to be held to the standard of that integrity and spirit and collaboration. It's not just a nice moral way to be. It actually works. It actually will produce bottom line results. And I wanted to be held to that bottom line standard because people won't hire us again unless the bottom line is impacted.
Right.
So I was very, that was a huge commitment of mine. And this is really the same commitment, it's just a younger audience. And so my favorite page, I think, is the last one. Can I?
Sure.
Which is, actually came to me out of something my daughter said. But it's, you know, at the end, so we wind it up with the God playing hide and seek and saying, and the most fun of all for God is being found beaming through every form. So where is God? And then there's this fun picture of many of God's creatures, and then saying in many languages, here I am, here I am, here I am. Aquí estoy, you know, je suis ici. So I think that, and that's just such a critical part of what I want to leave behind, you know.
Yeah. And what about you, Jennifer? You teach, and you teach about this, and you teach teachers how to do this, but you've also started a network channel. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because it seems to all be part of the same thing, giving different form to it.
Absolutely. So the story of the universe is not only a matter of just teaching what happened when and what sequence, right?
Right.
But it's much more fundamentally about who we are and what we're part of. You know, this is not just information. It's a fundamental sense of knowing and meaning and what it is to be human, to be part of an evolving universe. So when I teach this, you know, in the teacher trainings, everything is running along these two tracks. You know, one is what's the information, but now how do we interpret that? You know, because we're interpreting that, we're making meaning out of that.
Yeah.
And if we really get that we're at this point in this universe that's been transforming over all this time, what's our place in that? And what are we setting up for the future based on the decisions we make, the things we do, how we interact with the planet as a whole? How are we participating in the community of life of the whole Earth in terms of creating the next phase in evolution?
And I'm going to interrupt you here. We only have like 2 minutes, but I think one of the things that for me is, you know, people don't very often, and we were talking before, people feel fragmented. So we don't feel a part of something, or we have a lot of impact. And yet, if you say to them, one cell in your body can destroy your entire body as it morphs, so we as human beings can do the same thing. We have the same impact on the universe. Each and every cell of the universe is significant and impactful. Before we, and then I want you to have a chance to say something about your network, but I want to say your books are available on Amazon, yes? And your book is available on Amazon and through Barnes & Noble. So I invite people to check it out. And then just take 1 minute to tell us about this channel of kind of social way of connecting people.
Yes, so it's called deeptimejourney.org, and it's a network. It's a social network of teachers, artists, musicians. We have a lot of clergy coming on now. We're now in 10 countries. All these people are looking at a grand narrative of the universe as foundational and really deeply inquiring into what does it mean to be in part of and actually be the universe evolving. You know, this idea that the universe is transformed into us. We are the universe being us. And so how does that change the way we think about how we live life? We're mostly educators at this point, and they represent all levels from elementary, even early childhood also, all the way up to college level. And they're all taking this idea, how do we look at all the subjects inside of this transdisciplinary context? So rather than piecemeal education, which is the way it most often is done, you know, a chunk here, a chunk there, a chunk there, with nothing coherent, this is a way of contextualizing everything and really getting it like an adventure.
Great. So I now have to stop. So thank you so much for being here, for writing your books, for sharing your thoughts, your books, your ideas. And as I said, I invite everybody, if it even a tiny bit of interest, to check it out.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Natasha Sherman. Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.